There's this idea we've all been taught growing up that moms are supposed to be our safest place, our comfort, our home, and our biggest supporter. But what if that wasn't your reality? What if the person who was supposed to love you the most was also the one who hurt you the deepest? And that's exactly what I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy talks about. And no, this isn't a hate your mom kind of book. It's something deeper than that. It's about truth, it's about trauma, and it's about finally finding your own voice after years of being controlled. Hi, I'm Dessa Saavedra. Samahan niyo ako ulit dito lang sa isang pahina, isang kwento, isang aral. Ang sarap pala magbasa. There are usually stories we don't usually talk about, especially on days like this. Stories that don't fit the Happy Mother's Day caption. Stories that feel a little too heavy, a little too real. And maybe that's exactly why they need to be heard. Because not every relationship is soft. Not every memory is comforting. And not every I love you feels safe. So if you're someone who's ever felt that disconnect, this episode is for you. If you believe that book review podcasts deserve more space online, help this one grow by sharing your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let's grow this space for readers who want more than just stories. So before we even talk about the book, let's talk about the person behind it. Jennette McCurdy is someone a lot of us grew up watching, especially if you've seen iCarly on Nickelodeon. She played Sam Puckett, loud, funny, carefree, parang walang problema sa buhay. But behind that character, there was a completely different story. Jennette started acting really young, as in child star level young. And while it looked like success on the outside, in reality, she was dealing with pressure, control, and a lot of things she didn't even understand yet. She eventually stepped away from acting in 2018 because, in her own words, she didn't feel like she chose that life for herself. So for the synopsis, Jennette shares her life growing up as a child star. But more than the fame, more than the acting, what really stands out is her relationship with her mother. A relationship that looked close on the outside, but was actually filled with manipulation, control, and emotional abuse. Jennette's story isn't isolated. Many artists have opened up about similar experiences with controlling or abusive parents. Figures like Michael Jackson, Britney Spears, and Macaulay Culkin have all spoken in different ways about intense parental pressure, loss of freedom, and growing up without having full control of their own lives. Different stories, but the same pattern. Early fame, paired with authority figures who held too much power, blurring the lines between guidance and harm. From being forced into acting, to struggling with eating disorders, to not even knowing who she really was. You start to realize, this wasn't love, this was control disguised as love. And what makes the story hit even harder, especially during Mother's Day, is this. Not everyone celebrates this day with joy. For some people, it's complicated. For some, it's painful. And for some, it's a reminder of what they never had. And this book gives space for that. It tells you it's okay to acknowledge that your story is different. For the trivia, in the story, Jennette shares her own experiences about a certain key figure in Nickelodeon who she had a very toxic relationship with. And in fact, other young actors or former child actors from Nickelodeon have also stepped up and shared their own story about this key figure. And this person is actually allegedly Dan Schneider. In this book, he is portrayed as someone with power and influence over young actors' careers. Jennette describes uncomfortable and inappropriate situations, including blurred professional boundaries, emotionally manipulative behavior, and there are moments that suggest a toxic work environment, especially for young actors. So how about you? Have you heard about stories from other actors sharing their own experiences with Dan Schneider? I'd like to know your own thoughts in the comments. And up next, our word of the day. In I'm Glad My Mom Died, there's this deep tension around filial expectations. Yung idea na as a child, you're supposed to love, obey, and stay loyal to your parent. even when it's already hurting you. So for that, my word of the day is filial. And it means relating to a son or daughter, especially the relationship, duty, or feelings toward one's parents. I chose this word because in this book, you really see how complicated that relationship can become when love starts to feel like an obligation. In Jennette's case, yung nanay pa talaga niya mismo is yung nagturo sa kanya ng kanyang eating disorder na anorexia and then eventually bulimia. Dito sa librong ito, naging sentro talaga na usapan yung kanyang relationship with her own mother na medyo complicated, and that's why I chose this word for this episode. And up next, our favorite quote. Sometimes the person who raised you is also the one you have to heal from. This quote really describes Jennette McCurdy's own relationship with her mom. Because in her book, you see how love and pain can exist at the same time. How someone can mean everything to you and still be the reason you feel lost. But here's what I love most about this book. It doesn't stay in the pain. It shows growth. It shows what it looks like to unlearn toxic patterns, to set boundaries, and to finally choose yourself. So for me kasi, ang mga memoir ay yung pamamaraan ng isang manunulat para mag-heal, para tong therapy sa kanila kasi finally, isinisiwalat na nila yung kanilang mga storya in their own words, no holds barred. Yung pagiging open nila at yung ay napaka-therapeutic for them. And that's why I've always loved reading memoirs. It has benefits that goes both ways. As a reader, you learn more about this person, and for the person who's writing it, it becomes a therapy session for them. On the other hand, habang binabasa ko ang libro, I couldn't help but feel this heaviness na hindi pala lahat kaya magkaroon ng honest, open relationship kahit sa kanilang pamilya. We grow up believing that family is where we can be most ourselves, na kahit anong mangyari, doon tayo safe. But this book reminds you that for some people, family is where they learn to hide the most. And that's the part that's hard to accept because it breaks yung idea na okay lang, maayos din yan. Pamilya mo yan eh. When in reality, sometimes it doesn't get fixed. Sometimes, distance becomes the healing. Sometimes, honesty isn't even safe. And I didn't like that feeling. Not because it's wrong, but for someone who had a very similar experience, that's the reality they have to live with. And maybe that's where this book really leaves you. Not with comfort, but with clarity. Because I'm glad my mom died isn't the kind of story that wraps everything up so nicely. It sits with you. It makes you question things. It makes you feel things you don't usually want to face. And even if that truth feels uncomfortable, it's still worth hearing. So for me, this book gets a solid 4 out of 5 stars. Not because it lacks anything, but because it's heavy. It's not something you casually pick up and feel good after reading. But it's something that stays with you, and sometimes that matters more. And as for the price, this book usually retails around 900 to 1,100 pesos, depending on where you buy it. And honestly, for a story this raw and honest, it feels worth it. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a memoir by Jennette McCurdy. It's someone finally choosing to tell the truth, even when it hurts. And as for the final thoughts, ang sarap pala magbasa dahil natututo kang kilalanin ang pagkakaiba ng love at control. Ang sarap pala magbasa dahil pinapakita nito na pwede mong mahalin ang isang tao, pero piliin pa rin ang sarili mo. At ang sarap pala magbasa dahil naiintindihan natin na may mga kwento na tahimik, pero puno ng sakit, lalo na pagdating sa pamilya. And that concludes today's episode. If you believe that book review podcasts deserve more space online, help this one grow. Share your thoughts in the comments, like this episode, and subscribe for more. You can also listen and watch on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Because sometimes the stories we're afraid to read are the ones that understand us the most. Once again, I'm Tessa Saavedra. Samahan niyo ako ulit sa susunod dito lang sa isang pahina, isang kwento, isang aral. Ang sarap pala magbasa.